They leapt onto screens with power and purpose, but vanished into the static of forgotten Saturday mornings. These are the caped misfits of the 90s, bold, bizarre, and buried. Some were ahead of their time. Others were just too weird to survive. Today, we unlock the vault and reveal 15 forgotten superhero cartoons of the 1990s that deserve a second look. Number 15. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys, 1996. It sounded like a joke, but played like a cosmic odyssey. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys launched as a wild mashup of science fiction parodies and superhero tropes. A NASA monkey gains intelligence from alien contact and is recruited to lead a simian crew against an intergalactic villain named Nebula. The premise was absurd, the animation was polished, and the voice cast included stars like Malcolm McDowell and Michael Dorn. Underneath the comedy was a deep satirical streak, poking fun at Star Trek, Star Wars, and even superhero teams like the Avengers. Each monkey had a distinct power and personality, from the brash Spydor to the zen-like Shaolin. While the humor felt juvenile, the show tackled surprisingly adult themes, including betrayal war and cosmic duty. It aired in syndication, struggled for attention, and vanished after just one season. But for fans who caught it, Captain Simian was an unforgettable space ride through the strangest corner of superhero animation. It deserved more than extinction. Number 14. The Adventures of T-Rex, 1992. Set in the noir-style city of Rep City, The Adventures of T-Rex starred 5 dinosaur brothers moonlighting as a vaudeville act by day and crime fighters by night. Dressed in fedoras and trench coats, these mutant dinos battled an evil mob called the Corporation, using their powers of stretch strength and sonic screams. It was equal parts gangster spoof and superhero fantasy. Though animated by Japan's Pacific Rim Productions, the series felt deeply American, blending slapstick with crime noir and superhero cliches. The villains were grotesque, the music was jazz-infused, and the plot lines were surprisingly dense for a Saturday morning show. Its biggest downfall was tone. It couldn't decide if it was parody or drama, but in its confusion, it became something oddly unique. Only 20 episodes were made, and the show quickly vanished into oblivion. But for those who remember it, this T-Rex team was unlike any other animated heroes. Number 13. Savage Dragon, 1995. Based on Eric Larson's gritty Image Comics character Savage Dragon, brought pure comic book chaos to screens. A green fin-headed amnesiac cop with super strength fights crime in a warped Chicago overflowing with mutants, villains, and corruption. The cartoon attempted to tame the violent edge of its comic source, but still delivered hard punches and tough dialogue. The animation was rough, and the scripting aimed for a PG version of something R-rated. Guest characters from the Image universe popped in, including She-Dragon and Overlord. What made Savage Dragon stand out was its refusal to be polished. It embraced its grimy comic book roots and weird anti-hero tone. Despite its pedigree and cult comic following, the show was canceled after just 26 episodes. Still, it remains a time capsule of when Image Comics tried to take over every medium and almost succeeded. Forgotten but fierce, Savage Dragon was the anti-hero cartoon the 90s weren't quite ready for. Number 12. The Maxx, 1995. There was nothing like The Maxx. Not before, not after. Part of MTV's Oddities lineup, this surreal superhero story blended urban grime with dreamlike horror. Maxx was a hulking purple figure who existed in 2 realities, a homeless man in our world and a protector in a mythical outback dimension. Both realities were tethered to a social worker named Julie, whose trauma fueled the entire duality. What made The Maxx unforgettable was its raw fidelity to the Image comic. It was weird, grotesque, poetic, and deeply psychological. The animation alternated between stylized motion comics and fluid surrealism. It wasn't about good versus evil. It was about memory trauma and split identities. Audiences weren't ready. Its mature themes and bizarre pacing alienated mainstream viewers. Only 13 episodes aired. But for those who understood its layers, The Maxx was a haunting superhero parable, hiding in late-night animation. It wasn't just forgotten, it was buried alive. Number 11. Double Dragon, 1993. Adapted from the hit arcade game, Double Dragon should have been a no-brainer success, but this animated series took wild liberties. Billy and Jimmy Lee weren't just martial artists, They were mystic-powered dragon warriors battling an underworld mutant cult. Their mentor was a blind sensei. Their villains included shadow creatures, cyber warriors, and a bionic overlord named Shadow Master. The animation was slick and stylized, leaning into the 90s obsession with extreme powers and techno-fantasy. The show added lore to the bare-bones game backstory, but it also sacrificed simplicity for overwrought mythologies. Kids expecting street brawls got an arcane martial arts soap opera. Still, Double Dragon tried to stand out with serialized storytelling and spiritual themes. It even got a toy line, but only 26 episodes were produced before it was KO'd by low ratings. Today, it's rarely mentioned even by fans of the game, but for a while, it kicked with animated fury. Number 10. Bureau of Alien Detectors, BAD, 1996. It was the X-Files for kids, except darker and strangely brutal. Bureau of Alien Detectors, or BAD, followed a secret team of operatives protecting Earth from alien invasions. Each episode blended military sci-fi and horror with surprisingly graphic depictions of alien disintegration and body horror. It felt more like Starship Troopers than a Saturday morning cartoon. The team included a psychic, a tech genius, and a grim leader named Ben Packer. They faced parasitic entities, shape-shifting invaders, and ethical dilemmas rarely seen in children's shows. The animation was moody and shadow-heavy. The tone was grim, serious, and often terrifying. It aired as part of the Saban Action Pack, but faced backlash for its violence. Parents' groups protested, networks hesitated, and after just 13 episodes, BAD was gone. But it left behind one of the boldest and creepiest superhero-adjacent concepts of the decade, a forgotten experiment in animated dread. Number 9. Darkwing Duck, 1991. He was the terror that flapped in the night, and for a brief, shining moment, Darkwing Duck was a pop culture icon. But somehow over the years, this superhero parody slid into obscurity. A spin-off of DuckTales and an affectionate spoof of Batman and the Shadow, it followed Drake Mallard, aka Darkwing, as he tried to balance fatherhood and crime fighting in the city of St. Canard. With his sidekick Launchpad McQuack and adopted daughter Gosselin, he battled a wild rogues gallery, including Megavolt Bushroot Quackerjack and the chilling Negaduck. The show mixed slapstick action and surprisingly emotional themes. Episodes tackled responsibility, fear of irrelevance, and even existential crisis, all wrapped in a purple cape and gas gun gags. What made Darkwing Duck different was its ability to switch tones. One episode could be Looney Tunes-level absurdity, and the next, a noir mystery with real stakes. It ran for 91 episodes, but was often shuffled across time slots and buried under Disney's expanding catalog. In an age where DuckTales and Chip and Dale stayed on everyone's radar, Darkwing Duck slowly vanished. But for 90s kids who grew up watching it, this was superhero storytelling with heart humor and hidden depth. It was bold, it was zany, and it deserves a return from the shadows. Number 8. Phantom 2040. 1994. Few superhero cartoons from the 90s were as cerebral or visually daring as Phantom 2040. Set in a dystopian future, this animated reimagining of the classic comic strip hero brought environmentalism, cyberpunk, and genetic engineering into Saturday morning territory. The main character was Kit Walker, the 24th Phantom, fighting corporate overlords and bioengineered threats in the decaying city of Metropia. What stood out instantly was the art style. Overseen by Aeon Flux artist Peter Chung, the animation featured angular designs, moody shadows, and futuristic cityscapes. The tone was serious, often philosophical. Villains were not just evil, they were ideologues. The main antagonist was Rebecca Madison, a ruthless CEO aiming to create a world run by robotic life forms. The show embraced serialized storytelling long before it was common in children's animation. Plotlines built slowly, characters evolved, and themes like legacy, individual choice, and environmental collapse were explored in depth. Phantom 2040 only lasted 35 episodes, and despite critical acclaim, it never found a large audience. Perhaps it was too smart for its own good, but fans still recall it as one of the most ambitious superhero cartoons of the decade, a thoughtful, eerie, and haunting reinvention of a pulp icon. Number 7. Swamp Thing, 1991. It had the right look, the right music, and even a tie-in toy line. But Swamp Thing, the animated series, still sank into the bog of forgotten superhero shows. Based on the DC Comics creature, this short-lived adaptation aired only 5 episodes, but was marketed heavily through toys and commercials. On paper, it should have worked. In practice, it became a cult curiosity. The show followed Alec Holland, turned into the plant-based Swamp Thing, battling the evil Anton Arcane and his unmen. Set in the Louisiana swamps, the series mashed superhero tropes with horror elements, but the horror was sanitized. The stories were shallow, and the animation never matched the depth of its comic origins. Ironically, the opening theme, a parody of Wild Thing, is more remembered than the show itself. The character design was faithful, and the environmental message was present, but it never found a tone that worked. Too dark for young kids, too silly for teens, and too short for syndication. Today, Swamp Thing survives as a footnote in DC's animated history, but in an era where even the weirdest IPs got a shot, this Green Guardian nearly rooted himself in superhero animation. He just needed more episodes and a little more grit. Number 6. Mighty Maxx, 1993. At first glance, Mighty Maxx looked like just another toy commercial in cartoon form. But beneath its plastic origins lay one of the darkest, most emotionally resonant superhero cartoons of the 90s. Based on a series of Polly Pocket-style miniature playsets, the show followed Max, a sarcastic preteen who discovers he's the chosen cap-bearer, a legendary hero destined to save the world. Guided by Virgil, a talking fowl from Lemuria, and Norman, a Viking-like bodyguard who claims to have served Hercules, and Conan, Max is hurled into a non-stop dimension-hopping battle against Skullmaster, an ancient demonic warlord voiced by Tim Curry. The show did not shy away from death, tragedy, or fate. Mighty Maxx tackled heavy themes, including sacrifice, prophecy, and emotional growth. It never treated its young audience as too fragile for grief or fear. The finale, in particular, stunned viewers with a shocking time loop ending that challenged the very concept of heroism. Only 40 episodes aired, but they left a deep imprint on fans. The mix of mythology, sci-fi, horror, and humor made Mighty Maxx stand apart from its peers. It was a show about a boy with a cap, but also a boy burdened with destiny, and that made all the difference. Number 5. Wild C.A.T.s, 1994. When Image Comics exploded onto the scene in the early 90s, Wild C.A.T.s was one of its flagship titles. So it was only a matter of time before the superhero team made its way to television. The Wild C.A.T.s cartoon tried to ride the wave of X-Men and Batman, the animated series, but it never gained the traction of either. The series followed a group of half-alien warriors battling a race of evil, shape-shifting demonites on Earth. Led by the stoic Spartan and backed by tough-as-nails characters like Grifter and Zealot, the team operated in a world of ancient alien wars and high-tech espionage. The show delivered solid action scenes and flashy designs, but its writing struggled to balance exposition with energy. What hurt Wild C.A.T.s most was inconsistency. The tone shifted episode to episode, the animation dipped in quality, and the pacing never allowed the characters to breathe. Still, the voice cast featured big names like C.C.H. Pounder and Michael Jai White, and the theme song, with its screaming Wild C.A.T.s chorus, remains a banger. It only lasted 13 episodes, but for fans of Image Comics or extreme 90s aesthetics, this forgotten series tried to bring comic book grit to Saturday mornings. Number 4. Ultraforce, 1995. Ultraforce was part of the failed Ultraverse experiment, Malibu Comics' superhero universe that aimed to rival Marvel and DC. When Marvel bought Malibu, they inherited this animated series which featured a super team made up of Prime Hardcase Topaz and Prototype. It was flashy, ambitious, and completely overwhelmed by its own mythology. The show attempted to pack complex lore, alternate dimensions, and power politics into a 20-minute format. Prime was a Shazam-style kid-turned-Hulk hero. Topaz was a warrior queen. Ghoul was a reanimated corpse who cracked jokes. The tone bounced between cosmic drama and lowbrow humor. Animation-wise, it was solid. The designs were sharp, the action fast, and the themes surprisingly mature. But Ultraforce was always chasing an identity. It wanted to be deep and dramatic, but couldn't fully shed its toyetic origins. Only 13 episodes aired, and Malibu Comics dissolved shortly after. The Ultraverse dream died with it. Today, Ultraforce is barely remembered, a superhero relic from a universe that vanished in a corporate merger. But for a fleeting moment, it tried to redefine animated heroism. Number 3. Project G.e.e.K.E.R. 1996. From the chaotic minds of Futurama's David X. Cohen and Earthworm Jim creator Doug Tennappel came Project G.e.e.K.E.R., a truly bizarre and brilliant animated superhero parody that barely survived one season. The series followed G.e.e.K.E.R., a genetic experiment who escaped before his programming was complete. He was meant to be the ultimate weapon. Instead, he was a goofy, rubber-limbed dimwit in tights. G.e.e.K.E.R. was protected by Lady Macbeth, a no-nonsense cyborg, and a talking T-Rex named Noah, who wore a bow tie and read philosophy. Together, they fought the sinister Mr. Moloch and his army of corporate goons. The show satirized superhero tropes, biotech paranoia, and dystopian futures, all with rapid-fire gags and manic energy. But Project G.e.e.K.E.R. couldn't catch a break. CBS aired it during a time of FCC educational mandates, and the network absurdly tried to brand it as informative. The creators pushed back, but were forced to shoehorn in awkward learning moments. It never stood a chance. Cancelled after 13 episodes, it became a cult legend. Fans still mourn its loss and wonder what kind of chaotic brilliance could have emerged if it had been left to run wild. This wasn't just a forgotten show. It was a censored comedy that deserved freedom. Number 2. Skeleton Warriors, 1994. Skeletal warriors battling for the fate of humanity sounds like heavy metal heaven, and for a moment it was. Skeleton Warriors was a dark, action-packed animated series that followed the struggle between the heroic Legion of Light and the terrifying skeletal army of Baron Dark. This was no simple good versus evil cartoon. It was a full-on morality war. Justin Lightstar, the main hero, wielded the Lightstar Crystal and led his family into battle against Baron Dark, who had stolen the Shadow Crystal and transformed into a sentient skeleton. Anyone filled with greed could be turned into one of his undead minions, a deeply metaphorical hook wrapped in sci-fi body horror. The animation was bold, the score sweeping, and the action sequences unrelenting. But the show was too dark for younger kids and too toy-focused for older viewers. Even with a toy line comic tie-ins and a memorable opening theme, Skeleton Warriors couldn't hold on. It aired for just 13 episodes, yet its world-building, rich character arcs and gothic flair left a deep impression. This forgotten gem proved that animated heroism could be bold, brutal, and hauntingly beautiful. Number 1. The Tick, 1994. Absurdity never wore a cape quite like the Tick. Based on the cult comic by Ben Edlund, this animated series was a superhero parody that somehow elevated itself above satire. The Tick was a dim-witted, well-meaning powerhouse who shouted nonsense like "Spoon!" while battling bizarre villains like Chairface, Chippendale Elseed, and the Terror. Paired with Arthur, a nervous accountant in a moth suit, the Tick patrolled the city with unwavering confidence and absolutely no self-awareness. What made the show genius wasn't just its jokes, it was its sincerity. The Tick believed in justice even if he didn't understand it. The writing was razor-sharp, often philosophical, and deeply subversive. It lampooned superhero conventions with love, not cruelty. Episodes explored cosmic bureaucracy, metaphysical dilemmas, and even sidekick support groups. It aired on Fox Kids, ran for 3 seasons, and became a cult favorite. But mainstream audiences never truly embraced it. Today, it's rarely referenced outside dedicated fan circles. But make no mistake, The Tick wasn't just a forgotten cartoon. It was one of the most brilliant animated superhero deconstructions of the 90s. All that's missing is a revival, and maybe some justice-flavored justice. From purple parodies to mutant skeletons, these forgotten superhero cartoons didn't just entertain. They dared to be different. Some were too smart, others too weird, but all of them left behind capes flapping in the wind of memory. Revisit them, rewatch them, and remember, not all heroes wear syndication.